Welcome to Season 2, Episode 5 of Life Beyond Loss, the podcast. This is a guest show where we share amazing and inspirational stories of how people are navigating grief and loss, and also through to their healing and often transformation that's experienced as a result of that loss. I'm your host, Louise Kresick, grief and loss coach, and on today's show I'm joined by health and wellness coach Jill C. Brown. We explore Jill's experiences linked to loss of health of both family members and also her own health, and how this all impacted her world. We discuss how having a health diagnosis alters our state of mind, but more importantly, why mindset is the key to overcoming challenges related to health. Stay tuned to hear all about the can-do shoes. Show by the lovely Jill C. Brown of Advanced Life Coaching, and she is a health and wellness coach, and you're all the way over in sunny Wales, Jill, so welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I say sunny Wales, is it sunny there today?
It's not that sunny, but it's dry.
Oh, well, that's the main thing then, as long as it's dry.
We're not wet Wales today.
Oh, well, yeah, because, you know, they have got that kind of reputation in Wales, haven't they? It's like wet Wales. Just for people across the pond that might be thinking, wet Wales? Yeah. But yeah, so that's brilliant. But anyway, yes, welcome to the show. It's lovely to have you. We've known each other for a while now, I'd say probably over a year or so through one of our joint groups, and it's just been lovely to kind of, you know, get to know you and your story around loss and how this all kind of links together with, you know, your passion and purpose. So let's share with people, just to start with, a little bit about, you know, what it is you do as a health and wellness coach.
Okay, what I do is I especially help people who are diabetic or been diagnosed with diabetes. And I also help people with an illness or diagnosis, because the things they will encounter will be pretty similar in a lot of ways. It can be a really fearful place at first, and you can just be lost in the fear of all the unknown, and suddenly all these things you're told not to do and you can't do, and life suddenly revolves around can't and don't. So the first thing we do is look at where the person is right now and own it from there, because owning it is power, and then gaining all the knowledge you can and taking back the power from it, from the unknown.
And you talk a lot about can-do shoes as well, don't you?
Yes.
Which I love. I just love. I don't know. I always get this little thing in my little visual in my head of little tap dancing shoes. But tell us about the can-do shoes.
Well, the can-do shoes is something that suddenly occurred to me, because it's more than just can do. It's a whole emotion of feeling from where you are to where you want to be and where you can be. And the can-do shoes is taking back that control and taking steps, whether they're tiny little steps or whether you make a giant leap at times. Everybody's got can-do shoes, and we can all move from can't to can. So that's the can-do shoes.
I love it. And I really think it just sounds so much better with your Welsh accent as well. Can-do shoes. But there's a serious note to this, isn't there? Because I mean, I absolutely agree that, you know, that shift in looking at, you know, we often focus around what we can't do, and
Yeah,
get really bogged down, don't we, with all the things we can't do. And it's kind of human nature. We go there, don't we? And our brain kind of goes there. But it's really important in the work that you do just to help shift that focus. And I guess there's a bit of mindset work involved.
yes, there is. I mean, it's reframing a lot of things from the negative to the positive. And also affirmations help, you know, because you have to believe that you can do it. It's not just thinking, oh, that's for somebody else, you know, that's for somebody who's got everything together. Because the only way anybody gets anything together is by putting the work in to get there.
Yeah.
You know, it's not just a click of a switch or a magic wand and suddenly you move from can't to can. It takes work and determination in a way that you're not going to give in to the negative side.
And I think this is something that you demonstrate beautifully anyway, through your actions, through the things that you talk about on your social media. And I was just wondering then, you know, how much work have you had to put in to be able to get to that place of can do? Like, is it something that comes natural to you, or is it something you've had to work on over the years?
I definitely had to work on it. I mean, when I was a child, my father had an accident and he never walked properly again. So that was when I was about 8 years old. So I saw the effects of what health can do in a family, and the difficulties that arise. You know, even though I was sort of shielded from it as a child, you pick everything up. You know, you don't miss anything just because you're a child. And it made me aware that really I didn't ask for anything. And I didn't express my feelings fully as a child because I knew there was a lot going on. And I suppose I was quite introvert with how I felt. So that's how it affected me growing up. And then my husband had some bad health not long after we were married. And that was, again, a difficult situation. But we worked through that together. And then I had my own diagnosis of, well, I was told, first of all, I needed 2 knee replacements. And then I was diagnosed diabetic. And the biggest thing that affected me was don't walk barefoot on the sand anymore.
Wow.
Don't walk too far. Yeah, because if you get a cut on something, you can get an infection, and that can lead to amputation. So it was such a scary place at that time for me. You know, I mean, I'd never experienced that feeling of fear for myself. You know, up till then, I'd felt indestructible in terms of my own self. And I just didn't know what to do. I was just afraid. And then I knew I couldn't live in that place of fear. And what I did was a lot of research and found out as much as I could, because I think knowledge is power. It's easy to put your head in the sand and pretend nothing is happening. And I've heard some people with diabetes say, well, the doctors can medicate me and I just eat what I like and live as I like. But there's still things then happening to our bodies that we can't see, that are doing harm. I didn't want to end up with having heart trouble and a stroke and maybe an amputation, because I didn't find out as much as I could and take care of myself. You know, so
there's something about that again comes back to mindset, isn't it? Because when people say things like that, it's sort of on one level really just giving away their power, I feel. You know, well, it's okay, it's not my responsibility, everybody else is gonna do what they need to do to make me better, and I don't need to deal with it. Do you know what I mean? It's sort of, I feel like very disempowering.
And it's almost like if they had a stroke then or heart trouble, they'd say, well, it's not my fault, the doctor's fault, because they haven't looked after me properly.
So it feels like to me that when we talk about loss in your world and the work that you do, there has been this pattern from, you know, your dad through to your husband, and then your own kind of scenario of losing health. Would you agree with that? Is that so how did all of that kind of impact on your life then?
It's a funny thing with illness. It's one part, but it affects every part of your life. And it affects, you know, how you work, how you are with your family, with your friends, how you choose to take vacations. You know, it can, all of life is moving parts, and that one part affects all the others.
There is this mode of thinking, isn't there, that if you haven't got your health, you haven't got anything.
Well, there's a saying, isn't there? Health is wealth. And it really is important. I mean, to keep as healthy as you can. When you think about it, though, if somebody even loses a limb, that doesn't stop them from living. You know, you've got the Paralympics, which didn't exist years ago, and people are finding ways around serious illnesses or diagnoses that means that it doesn't impact so much on the other parts of their life. They can still live a full and adventurous life.
And a very adventurous lady you are as well. I have to just point out you're running up sand dunes, and I don't know what else have you done this year? You've done loads in the last year or so. I'm sure I've seen loads of photos. You were I don't know, was it Iceland or somewhere like that on a
Finland?
yeah, Finland, that's it, on toboggans and
snowmobiles and huskies.
But I think that is, again, it's an important point, isn't it? Because it's sort of giving people the message that, you know, having those challenges with health isn't a life sentence. It's, you know, it's a challenge. It's something that we have to overcome. But actually, like you say, like, you can still live life, you know, live your best life, and it's all about, I guess, again, comes back to mindset, a lot of it, doesn't it? But dealing with those sort of self-limiting beliefs, or just taking those kind of limitations or finding ways around them. What do you think?
Well, I think there's some people who are never told that they can't do something. So they just go ahead and do it. And there are some who are told they can't do it and say, I'm going to anyway. And I mean, you hear of people who are told they'll never walk again, who walk again, run, and do all manner of things that they were told they'd never do. And then some people just say, okay, I can't do that. I'm not going to do that. So I would want anybody who thinks they can't and who's giving in to saying they can't, take a step back and say, but what if I can? What would my can-do shoes help me with?
What do you think's different about those people that have got that, just that, I don't know, it's just sort of comes natural to them, doesn't it? That, you know, when they're told they can't and they just do it anyway. And there's some amazing stories out there, isn't there, like you said, of people who were told that they can't walk and they learn to walk, etc. I wonder what's different about those people. What do you think?
I think the people who are never told they can't, it simply doesn't enter their head then. Can't doesn't enter there, you know. The people who are told they can't and they do it anyway, then I think it's just, I will not accept that I can't do this. I refuse to accept that this is it. And I will explore every avenue I can and try everything I can to be able to do it. And, you know, maybe some parts of it you can't do, but you find a whole bunch of things that you can. And you may have to find a new way or a different way of doing it. But there are so many options out there that you can find a new way, a new path.
What are the things that have helped you to heal from your loss and to put on your can-do shoes?
Well, the first thing I did was I got a personal trainer, somebody who understood problems with knees and different injuries then. And he taught me that if you strengthen the muscles, then that supports the knees anyway. So there was less likelihood of having pain and less likelihood of needing knee replacements, at least right now. So it took a while. It took over a year to get that strength where I was no longer in pain. Also, the exercise helps the diabetes because moving and you know, not being sedentary is being sedentary is the worst thing for somebody with diabetes. And the trouble was with my knees, the doctor said, oh, don't walk too far, don't do too much. And everything was don't. And then suddenly I was doing so much more, you know, and I hiked up Penavan Mountain and no knee pain. I can walk 10 miles with no knee pain, you know, whereas I couldn't walk a mile before. So that took care of the physical side of things. And then I did a lot of research about food and what foods affect how your sugar levels are. But somebody actually gave me the best piece of advice. They said, eat to my meter, which meant when I ate a meal and I checked my blood sugars after, if they were higher than they should have been, to change one ingredient on the plate. So when I ate that meal again, I changed one ingredient to find out how that affected me until I found what foods really affected me. And a lot of the advice is, don't eat this, eat more of this. And really it's that doesn't suit everybody. And taking the time to find out what worked for me meant that I can make a conscious decision of, if I eat something, I know it will affect me, or choosing not to eat that. So that gave me power, because it was in my hands. I wasn't just eating foods or not eating foods because I was told that. I'd also found out what really affected me. So it meant that was all my decision then, my control. So I regained the control there. I also worked with a coach, because I've actually heard in the USA they've done research now and found that people who work with a coach for 12 months after, some kind of loss, or even with pain or illness, 12 months after they finish working with the coach, they're still getting the same good results as they were while they worked with a coach. So the work they do impacts longer term. And they were saying that on this research that sports have recognized the importance of coaching for a long time. And so have, executive business people. But everybody else is a bit unsure about whether they should work with a coach. But it benefited me and gave me new tools to deal with the negative and the uncertainty, because we're human, so we're going to have negative thoughts and uncertainty, but not dwelling with those and being able to just observe them and say, okay, I can see you there, but I'm not going to build any story around that negativity or build any story around this feeling of uncertainty.
Yeah.
I can just see it's there, but not give it any power.
Sorry, Jill.
That's okay.
I was just thinking, it's a bit like, that I talked very recently actually on my social media about pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. That's what kind of sprang to mind, because, we can experience pain and we have physical pain and our body's designed that way for a reason. But when we, the stories that we create around that pain are what leads to the suffering ultimately, in my view. What do you think?
Yes, yeah. I mean, if you fight it, that causes you pain. Whereas if you can just sit back and say, I see you, I see these negative thoughts or, these emotions. I see you. Thank you for being there. What are you trying to tell me? And taking that rather than building up this story that adds to the negativity, or trying to say, you can't be here, go away, which causes more pain because then you're fighting against it.
Yes.
We've got to go with what's human and work with it rather than fight against it.
Absolutely. Couldn't have said those words better myself. I'm always banging on about this whole situation around, again, specifically for me with grief, but, you know, people often come to me and they want to push it away. They don't want it anymore, and that sort of thing. I'm fighting it. And the words people use, you can see it, can't you? I'm battling with this. I'm struggling with that. I'm fighting this. And actually, there's no need. There's just no need about embracing it, accepting it for what it is, and even sitting with the uncomfortableness of it, but then figuring out how we work with it, which is, yeah. You said it perfectly.
Thank you.
And I also, so I love that, you know, so the things that have ultimately helped you, your approach was about tackling it physically as well as, you know, emotionally and mentally as well. So it's sort of, you know, looking at the whole, I suppose it's a holistic, isn't it, sort of 360 approach to dealing with these challenges and dealing with our loss.
It's treating ourselves as a whole human being, rather than just in parts. You know, because our mental attitude affects our physical being, and the physical affects the mental, which affects everything else that goes with it. So when we treat ourselves as a whole being and look after ourselves in that holistic way, then we benefit. We benefit as a whole being. You know, we tend to just look at parts, at one little bit, and wonder sometimes why that one little bit isn't getting any better. And it's because we're a whole and affected by the whole.
I love it. You're so full of wisdom.
Thank you.
What do you feel that you have been able to do with your experience of these challenges to your health? And I guess with this, you know, what you've been through with your husband in the past and with your dad as well, what has it had an I don't know, has it had an effect on you that you felt that you could actually take something from it and, you know, do something with that experience?
Well, one thing I know for sure is I learned that I was much stronger than I ever thought I was, and much more resilient. And what we think is going to really stop us in our tracks actually takes us on steps further forward.
Do you feel like is this kind of the momentum as well behind your passion and purpose now and what you do with helping others?
Yes. I want people to know that they're not these frightened people, that they feel that they have strength, that they are resilient, and that with some support they can do anything.
I think that it's, the resilience thing, people are so much more resilient than they give themselves credit for. I think that our body, our mind is designed to be resilient.
It
you know,
is.
on a very don't know what the word is now. I can't think of it's gone off my head. But just on a very basic level, really, in terms of basic functioning, you know, we talk about our inbuilt systems is what I'm getting at. And I think resilience is part of that inbuilt system that we are designed with. But I think that it's quite often it's the other stuff that sort of the clouded judgments, the thought process, the stories that sort of get in the way, isn't it, of recognizing that resilience.
Yeah, I mean, if people weren't resilient, we would have died out long ago. You know, when you go back to caveman times, you know, people were resilient to survive with big predators.
Mm.
And without that ability to have that resilience, we would no longer exist.
Similarly, we've also got this inbuilt sort of fight or flight system, haven't we, though, that then now actually can also become a hindrance as well in today's society, because we can respond and react and panic to things which actually we don't need to. It's when it's actually more of a more beneficial for us to take a step back and just breathe. So I guess it's finding the balance, isn't it, between tapping into that, you know, that resilience and using that anxiety in a good way, because there is such a thing, isn't there, as good anxiety.
Yes.
Anxiety we use in a positive way, but then equally, I guess what you were saying, the fear that people have around dealing with health situations, it's just finding that balance, maybe.
It is. It's about just taking that step back, like you say, and looking at the situation, you know, because no saber-toothed tiger is going to jump out on us. And it's taking that step back and saying, this is a fear that's there to protect me. So thank you for protecting me. Thank you for being there. You've kept me safe. But I really don't need keeping safe from this. This is okay.
Yeah. Although I do live quite close to the safari park. So I do sometimes wonder whether I might see a lion wandering around my back garden. In which case, thank you, anxiety.
Yes.
But I mean, it's been lovely to speak to you, Jill. It's obviously, I always think the time flies on these podcasts as well. But just wondered if we'd like to just sort of leave people with a few words of encouragement now, in terms of anybody who might be dealing with or coping with changes to their health, because this is absolutely a loss for people, and it does sometimes send people into grief as well.
Yeah.
So what would you say to people who might be maybe pending diagnosis or just had received a diagnosis?
Well, I would say just stop, take a step back and breathe, and know that we're always okay. And there will be questions that need to be asked and answers to be found. And knowledge is putting the power back in your hands, as opposed to just feeling afraid and not understanding. So I would always say have somebody with you, because you need an extra pair of ears. It's easy to miss things or misunderstand things. And know that you're safe, that safe place comes from within. It's not something that is outside of you. So create and build the safe space within.
Wonderful. And where can people find you then? Where can they track you down?
They can find me on Jill C. Brown, advancedlifecoaching.com. And they can also find me on Facebook on Advanced Life Coaching. And I am also on LinkedIn under just Jill Brown. But they can email me at info@jillcbrown@advancedlifecoaching.com. So that's how they can track me down.
There we go. Multitude of ways there we can get in touch with Jill. So thank you so much, Jill, for coming on the show. It's always really lovely to speak to you. We're on a national holiday here today, aren't we? So we've been up against a bit of background noise from husband's dogs, which I can now hear, and anything else in between. So anyway, thank you very much, Jill. And
thank you, Louise. It's always a pleasure.